All it takes is one iota or one thought of recognition of what's going on. Instead of spiraling, if I just notice the spiral, I come back to reality. And that's what makes me feel so much better. And then I don't have to be right, and I can be confident, and all the noise is irrelevant. I kid you not, my favorite things in the world would be the biggest catalyst to being anxious because I need it right now instead of just enjoying the gosh darn process. I was making all these videos early on in 2014, with my bare feet, with no microphone, it's out of focus. And the very first video I made was me washing my Carrera S, sharing my $500 hose setup, garden hose setup, and everybody getting mad about that. And I wasn't super rich then, and it was I just really valued washing.
What do you think 2014 Matt Moreman would think of 2024 into 2025 Matt Moreman?
Man, that's a great question.
Not to put you on the spot, right when we're
Yeah.
recording.
Yeah, I think he'd be pretty proud. I've grown up a lot. I've learned a lot. I've learned to become a leader, which is the thing I'm probably most proud of. 2014 Matt is like an infant on social platforms. I talk about this all the time. Gary Vee talks about this, where he says, people are like, you're like an infant when we all start out in the same place when you're dealing with social interaction at scale. And so I jumped into the deep end head first into an industry I had no business being in, and into a world I had no business being in. And the only reason it worked is because I didn't have an agenda. But with no agenda comes no, I'll just say what I want when I want, and middle fingers up, without saying bad words. I somehow tend to offend lots of people. And so I probably,
Before we continue on with this video, I want to let you know about the Jimbo's Detailing line of products and how you can save 20% at jimbosdetailing.com by using the code YouTube. So head over to the link down below and you can save 20% on your entire order over at jimbosdetailing.com. And for those of you that have taken me up on that offer or other offers, I just want to say a continued thank you for the support. It means a ton, and I really enjoy seeing all your guys' orders come in. And then when you get the orders, how happy you are with the product.
I don't think I could change it. I don't think I would change it, because you have to go through the steps to get your. I feel like I'm writing my PhD thesis now, or at least I've obtained my master's and I'm looking for the PhD curriculum. I'm not quite there yet, but I feel like, because I haven't figured out how to reach, and I don't know that I want it to reach broad appeal. But I haven't figured out how to stay completely authentic without the offense. But 2014 Matt Moore was just like, man, you figured out how to do it with where you until you arrive mentally. There's always a little bit of insecurity and that sort of imposter syndrome. Like, what the heck am I doing here? Who am I to set up a camera and talk to it and share it with people? And so in the beginning, it was awesome because I never even thought about it. It wasn't a business. It wasn't a thing. It was just therapy. And so now today, I just feel I've figured out a lot of things. Like, I figured out what gratefulness is. What does that mean? What is that feeling? What is that feeling when I take my fancy car to the gas station? It's not like arrogance. It's not I feel better than, because I don't give a crap what anybody else thinks. I didn't know how to define it, and I've been able to, through lots of figuring myself out, figure out that's just gratitude. I feel gracious that, man, this is cool. It's cool that I'm able to get this car and drive it and fill it up with gas and not think about what it costs at the gas pump and just put your credit card in. And so, long answer to a short question, I think that 2014 Matt would be pretty pumped about this whole thing.
I love the long answers, and I think that made me think of like so many questions when you're talking about that, because you mentioned Gary Vee, and then you also mentioned like not scalability, but you said peak, like maybe reach into the masses, I think you were kind of saying, but
Yep.
without being offensive, right? But
Yeah.
if I think about Gary Vee, he curses a lot, right? And is very unapologetic about that, right? Because he leans more into the being authentic, right? But I feel like he has hit like mass scale, right? So do you think you have to be
No,
Like,
but there's a happy medium there in that what I provide the world, and this is what's changed in me so much. I have a confidence in this now. There's no arrogance. There's no more like insecurity. Like, man, am I supposed to know this stuff? Like the service that the value that I provide the world through Garage, or just we were just talking earlier about my computer setup. Like I'm just so I'm blessed and cursed at the same time, right? So I'm blessed with this ability to just chase and figure things out, and then I tend to be pretty good at talking about it. But there's a way to talk about it without turning 50% of the people off, and so that's when I say I'll reach the mass of the niche.
okay.
Right, which is still a very small percentage of people. I'm not looking for the soccer mom Honda Accord driver that doesn't give a crap about Dyne Audio Core speakers, But there's a way to do it where I can still be me, like you and I, you know me, you know what I'm about. You're not offended by me, but not everybody can get through that armor that like, your speakers suck. These are great. Throw yours away and buy these. I could probably say that a little bit differently. And so I'm learning how to do that. And so there's now for you and my people, right? So my group of people, they love that, and they're bought into that. But can I say that where the people that love that don't get lost?
Right.
But the people that are turned off by that saying what is so, is now. The real magic is, can I do that naturally? Because I don't want a freaking job. I don't want to fake it. I don't want a job. And so I think just simple maturing and feeling like I've arrived to where I've arrived, I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter, right? That's the thing. But not feeling like an imposter so much means that I don't need to, I don't need to snap back. I don't need to be right. I am right. And I'm confident that I'm right. So there's no reason to speak about being right because it's just so, right?
Well, I think it's like that. It seems like it's that intersection, because confidence was the word that came to my mind, right? But like you mentioned gratitude earlier. So it almost seems like that intersection of like
Yeah.
gratitude and confidence, right?
It's
But it's the
hard to
holy
get
grail.
there.
I was just gonna say, how do you? Where's the roadmap? Where's the podcast that talks about how to get there?
And that can change from day to day. You might wake up and have a bad day. And so the difficulty for me personally is not extrapolating that bad hour or that bad day and then expanding it like this is the rest of my life. Instead of accepting, all right, today's a bad day. Let's just accept it. Let me just stop and go lay on the couch, watch something cool on TV, and start again tomorrow. That's really hard for me to do. For me, it's all or nothing. I'm all in or I'm all out, or it's doom and gloom or amazing. There's no like just normal.
Is there any things that you've learned to like? You mentioned laying on the couch, or like to not have that hour go into the day or that day bleed into multiple days, or is that part of the continued practice?
That's the being mindful and aware of that. Right. And so I've been so unaware of the background of my brain, the background obsession, that worry, that angst, that sort of silent suffering that is what I think makes me good at what I do. But it's such wasted energy. I tell people this all the time. When I'm sitting on the couch, I'll have a podcast playing. I'll be watching something like an NBA game, and I'm researching something all at the same time, just to silence that worry that, man, can I make payroll? And did I buy too much inventory? That sort of that worry, shutting that off has been the 2014 to the 2024 Matt has been the sort of the work or the effort of my life to be able to figure that out. And so that's what's changed my whole sort of Zen state, if you will. It's changed the whole state of being, and accepting that. All right, today I ate a bunch of junk food. That doesn't mean that now I have to like take the rest of the month off and binge my way through it. And so that all or nothing thing just takes is one iota or one thought of recognition of what's going on. instead of spiraling, if I just notice the spiral, I can come back to reality. And that's what makes me feel so much better. And then I don't have to be right, and I can be confident, and all of the noise is irrelevant. And so that's been the discovery over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, I meet with a darn therapist every single week. I never want to do it, ever. I hate doing it. But I meet for an hour. It costs me $150. So I'm spending, I'm spending $600 a month. On meeting with somebody. Every single time I go into it, I have nothing to talk about, and yet I come out with every single week, some crazy life epiphany. And I have a business coach, same thing. I never want to meet with them. I never have anything to talk about. I always I don't come with notes or things written down. I just start talking about because from week to week for me, life moves fast. And so I just I just start talking, start telling a story. And then I'm doing the same thing on camera. And so my brain is so erratic, and I say I live at like 8 out of 10 on, I'm almost at red line, just me talking to you right now. And so the more that I can get that out, because my natural tendency is to go by myself in the garage, not talk to anybody, and then then that voice, that 80% worry, that 8%, 80%,
it's louder and louder.
Yeah, it's never depressive, it's never not good enough. I'm supremely confident in myself, but it's always something like, oh my gosh, like I committed to doing $250 million in revenue. I'm never going to get there. Well, what if, and it just spirals out of control when none of that matters. If I sold that much crap, well, I don't even care. I have everything I want anyway. So what does it even matter? And so all I have to do is the what if spiral. Just see it, turn and look at it, and then it goes away. But it's almost impossible to do because it's a lot of it's blind to me. And so that's what I've been working on, this therapy, just figuring out how to look at that what if spiral, that tornado that makes me great, but is also the biggest curse, that humbles everything.
It reminds me of, which I think is like a total, like really on brand for you. It's like living life intentionally, right? Because it seems like when you intentionally think about something, then you can pull yourself out of it, right? But it seems like everything in your life is intentional, right? Like the garage, everything has a place intentionally. Right. So
yeah, but see, that's completely natural to me. I don't even think about it. It's just innate. Okay. Right. And then it's taken me a long time to recognize the value that and feel gratitude that innateness is not given to really most anybody.
Right.
And so I don't take it for granted. And that structure of me organizing a tool drawer or organizing my desk drawer is like eating ice cream to me. And then just seeing it, recognizing, oh man, I love doing this. I kid you not, my favorite things in the world would be the biggest catalyst to being anxious because I need it right now, instead of just enjoying the gosh darn process. I'll give you an example. Today I went out on my mountain bike and rode 22 miles. I haven't ridden in a while. And so my natural tendency is to extrapolate to, I'm going to be a professional mountain biker, right? Which we all know I'm not going to do. I know I'm not going to do. But I fantasize about, well, I could be. And so then I can't enjoy that ride, that 22 miles, that 2 hours, and just take it for what it is. Or if I go to a CrossFit workout, I'm reminiscing about the past and the future. What did I once do that I'm going to get back to? And what could I be if I just do this infinitely every day to perfection forever? And so the thing that I'm so close to is I can just go do a workout and be in the workout. And then if you put together a bunch of workouts, then you end up with a win. Same with a diet. If you just put together a day, let me just work on today, and then tomorrow put together the day. And it sounds so simple and so rational, but to me, it's so foreign. It's like voodoo magic, right? And so I'm starting to figure that out. It's the same thing with business. It's the same thing with polishing a car. It's the same thing with owning a car. It's the same thing with all this crap that I put behind me and building this out. Just accept that it's I enjoy the process and accept it at that moment and stop extrapolating it from past and future. Let's just do it right now in the present. So you can see I haven't quite figured this all out, but I'm on to something.
I think it's very interesting, and I see myself and tendencies in a lot of that, because I also started to think, okay, so then though, once you find like your equilibrium, right, where you can live in the moment, does living in the moment then create its own anxiety and stress about living in the moment and not worrying about the future?
No, because the key is that if you live present. Another example. Let's say I had an employee come and ask for a raise, and I didn't feel like they deserved it. If I'm living in the past and in the future, I can't have it like a proper negotiation, because it sends anxiousness. I'm not present. I'm living in the past and the future. I can't, have an honest conversation. I can't think on my feet that, maybe I'm ready to fire this person, and they come in and demand a raise. And that's an opportunity for me to, if I'm present, to kind of negotiate and work my way through and sort of talk through and find out what's really going on, so that way I can improve the situation. But when you get that angst, or you're living in the past of how they screwed you and how they're not living up to the future thing, the future representation of them that you thought. But when I'm present, what happens is I can put together just one thing at a time. And so my whole life I've lived in this perfect scenario that's undefined, that's in the future, that's something better that I've done in the past. And so it's completely undefined. This is what perfectionism is, right? Completely undefined. So I never sit down and write it out. And so no matter what I get to, it's always a failure, right? Not depressive. I never get that. I never get that way, but I'm just constantly spinning on this perfection outcome, this perfect outcome. And so I'm living in the future and living in the past. When I'm present, I can actually define the outcome, and I can just chip away at it one day at a time. All right, we're going to do this today. We're going to do that tomorrow. And because of what you said before, I'm so regimented and so specific and so organized, I get like a magical result. If I can drop the 80% of my brain is working on the what if spiral, get rid of that, as much of that as possible, then live right now. And then you can just put little wins together, stack it up. Let me ride my mountain bike today. And then maybe I'll ride it 2 days from now. And then maybe I'll ride it next weekend. And then before you know it, I'm riding that 20 miles, 10 minutes faster. Like, it can add up immensely. Same thing with business. Like, I had this struggle. Like, I have this vision for how many products we're going to have. And we're going to build a whole house from start to finish. First, it was a whole detailing package, and then it was a whole garage, and then it was a whole house. And I've never enjoyed the whole darn process. And I'm just chasing so fast, so hard. And
you haven't enjoyed any of it? Because
very little of it. Yeah. Okay. Because by the time I found the, Matt and Jimbo find the decon soap, that was already given. Next. Right. That was already given. So I'm already I'm 45 steps ahead of that.
Yeah.
And so that was like, there's no credit given to that. There's no enjoyment in that because of living so far out front of it.
Right.
That you never get to enjoy it. And so that's what's been such a big epiphany. Like right now, I moved into this like regular house. It's a regular, what would have been a $350,000 house. I sold my mansion and moved to this regular house, and I'm enjoying every minute of it, because I'm present in, okay, we're building the garage. All right, now I'll start the mud room, and then we'll build the outdoor kitchen. And then when I'm done with the house, I'll probably sell it and do something else. And accepting that instead of, living in some perfectionist future. Like my desk here, I was enjoying this desk so much because I've been sitting on a plastic chair in the corner, with I didn't have anywhere to go. And then it makes me feel good when I kind of put something together. But I didn't need it. I just wanted to do it. And then that acceptance factor. So there's a lot of I in this conversation here.
Oh, yeah. I think it's
there's
great.
A lot of introspection. If I can figure myself out, then I can be a much bigger contributor to others.
Well, and I think that's part of the draw to what you do, even on YouTube and stuff too, is sharing that, right? Sharing what you're working through, because I think
Yeah.
a lot more people are going through, not to discredit what you're going through, but I think a lot of other people feel the same way, right? And
For
there's
sure.
nowhere to go. There's nowhere to, yeah, you can get a therapist in that too, but it's nice to hear other people dealing with some feelings that you may have too, right? And how that person's doing it, because people are searching for wait, oh man, I never thought about if I just am intentional and stop it in that moment, and think about it, I can handle it, right? Like that. So I think you gave a lot of nuggets right there. I think it's very interesting.
So a lot of your audience are professional detailers, right? I mean,
Yeah, most of them for the podcast.
a good percentage of
Yeah.
them. And so, the most common thing I hear from professional detailers is that, well, no one else can do it like I can do it, right? And starting and building the business is a difficult thing to give up. I mean, I can relate to that big time. I'd rather just do it myself. And I'd rather edit the video myself. I'd rather take the photo myself. I'd rather write the description for the video I put on YouTube, or I'd rather pack the box myself. And so the reason why I've had to work on this so much is when you start to include others, you start to invite others, you get the enrichment of that. You also get leverage from that, but you have to improve in order to be a good steward of their time and their belief in you. And so in order to get and in order to scale what it is you're doing, you need others, you need help from others, and that requires a different mindset. So I have the people that are watching me, right, on YouTube, and I never think about anybody watching me wash my car as an audience or a fan. They're just dudes that happen to be sitting on a bucket next to me, washing the car, and I'm just talking to them. Now, sometimes there might be 50,000 of them, so it's a scaled thing, but it's scaled. It's scaled. My buddy sitting on a bucket, talking, sitting next to me, watching me go through it. And so, in order to be a good steward of that, and of employees and of family, of people in your life, if I'm going to involve or include this many people, I got to figure out how to be a leader. And so in order to be a leader, I got to be present. And so what we just talked about is figuring out, why am I not present, and what do I got to do to figure out how to be present? And then what fruits will I get personally from being present? And then what will the people that are around me, even you in this conversation, what fruit can everybody and anybody that I'm attached to in some form or fashion, can everybody gain from figuring out how to be present, and how to be a leader, and how to essentially do the right thing. And I think that, unfortunately, in life, you learn how to do this by like when you're like 70 years old, if you're lucky. It takes time, it takes trial and error, and in my life, it's happened probably a lot quicker because of the scale at which I'm doing it. The scale at which I'm doing it, and how much I'm sharing the real, rather than making YouTube and making Instagram, making that my job, and then people get to see me at work, and then they get to see me then there's other people that are close to me that get to see me at home. Well, I made the choice that home and work are all one thing, and so people see me, and like when you first met me, that was one of the things you guys, was this jerk off, and then when you met me, you're like,
I didn't say
this
that.
This guy's the same guy. You and Darren are like, this is the same guy that I saw on camera. Like, I can't believe it. I thought maybe there was some personality or persona.
Right.
And the risk of doing that, though, is then you let people in and they can violate that, and so that's tricky.
Which probably has happened to you.
Yeah, quite a bit, or especially early on, because I invited everybody at all times, and I still do. But
I mean, I barely knew you, and I think I'm trying to remember what year that was. I know we met 2014, I think at SEMA. That's when I was with Darren. And then I want to say it was maybe 2015.
I think we met in 2015.
15? Okay.
Yeah.
When did I come to your house in Lady Lake when you had...
That was probably 16.
Okay, yeah. 16. But you were like, come to my house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy's like just telling me to come to his house. And then I remember we got there and it's like, you just walk in the door to your house. And I'm like, wait, you don't lock your doors? You're like, why would I need to lock my doors? I was like, oh my God. This guy's just
part of it is where we live,
Yeah.
We live in And the other part is that, part of the byproduct of being so matter of fact is that, people don't mess with me all that much.
Yeah.
So.
Do you remember the first, so you start putting out content on YouTube and it's mainly around detailing. Do you remember like the first pushback you got from quote unquote professional, or you had mentioned it when we first started talking here, but that not really being accepted?
No one said anything. So that first year in 2015, I could just see it, because at that time there was Larry, Ammo NYC, there was Chemical
right?
Guys, and there was the Junk Man. Those are like the three
Yeah.
only YouTube channels. And then I started, but again, detailing is like 10% of my obsession, right? It's just I happened to set the camera up and started washing my car on camera, and that was the first pursuit for me, to kind of put that all together. And I'm drinking from a fire hose. It also just so happened that that was the exponential increase in tech, in long throw polishing. It sort of started in a few years before that, 2011, but started to take footing, and then better polishes, and of course ceramic coatings, and then we've seen this exponential rise. Of course, there's been some nonsense like graphene and stuff that's tried to reinvigorate that rise, but I think we've lived through that like the internet of detailing happened, right, 2012 through 2020-ish, 2018, right? And so we saw this exponential change and rise, and then we saw a complete change in how people consume, right? And so the DIY online detailer wasn't really a thing. Larry was a professional. Junk Man was just looking for deals, and Chemical Guys was a company. And so here you have this guy, this finance guy, who doesn't belong. What the heck is he doing here? He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think that the industry underestimates a non-professional's ability to learn when you have resources, time, and passion. And so you can become better than professional grade really, really quickly. You're not going to beat somebody like Shine Doctor, who's been doing it his whole life and has just some innate ability. But the average detailer, a person with passion, resources, and time, can pass up even a really good pro pretty quickly, just because of the energy, right? And so I think that that's where a lot of the pushback came from, is here's this, this rich douchebag, walking, with his fancy cars. He didn't even do other people's cars. He didn't know what he's talking about. And so I'd be walking around the booths at SEMA and just kind of getting that look. Like, what is
it's almost like jealousy, though, right? Because a lot of those detailers couldn't even afford it. They were, and I think even still to this day, they feel grateful, which I always think is weird. They feel grateful to be working on someone's car like that, let alone owning a car like that, right?
Yeah, there's and like I talked about, there was an insecurity in I was just happy to be there. I mean, that's what you saw when you met me. I was like, man, this is cool. I get to meet Darren and Jimbo. I mean, this is great. Like, and I was so excited to meet, Todd Cooperrider and Kevin Brown and Larry, because just meet all these people, and get to, Jason Rose, and just ask them questions and learn information, gather information. And I think that the secret sauce for me was I listened to what everybody said and then put my own thing together. Right? So I listened, but I didn't follow. I didn't replicate. I didn't copy. Actually, my number one hater, this guy, he's awesome. He creates all kinds of fake profiles and stuff. He's convinced that I stole how to everything from Esoteric. Now, when I would go and get trained by Mike Phillips or Ivan LaCroix, or
did you get trained at Esoteric?
Yeah, went to Esoteric and did their training, but I keep my mouth shut. I don't go so I can learn. And so the taking all, like, Todd taught me how to correct an edge. I didn't know what edge work was the thing. So that was the big thing that I learned from him. The other thing was a little bit of pad pressure, which some would argue pad pressure doesn't matter. And so, but then taking, like Ivan is out there and, in some other land of how you would polish and paint correct. And then, and then you have, Kevin Brown who's talking about, spraying water and diluting and working with one chemical and just mastering that. And so taking all these different techniques and having the resources to go and fly around the country allowed me to learn at scale, learn quicker. I already knew a lot of this. It just made common sense to me. But some of the things like how to polish an edge didn't make sense to me. And so having somebody like Todd teach me how to grab my hands and show me how to do it, just added that other little tool to the arsenal to learn. And so having, seeing like a hater or seeing a detailer who isn't about what I'm doing, they don't understand that, and they couldn't because they don't have a frame of reference for it. And so where I used to push back on that and fight them, now I understand that they can't understand that. They just don't have a frame of reference. So that hater doesn't have a frame of reference for that. No matter how much I speak it, I'm speaking something that just doesn't register. Especially if somebody's positional or dug in on something. And so I'm walking around SEMA in 2015 and 16. If 2015 Matt, knew what 2024 Matt, I would have had a lot of fun with that.
Kind of trolling the troll.
Being the smartest guy in the room doesn't mean that you announce you're the smartest guy in the room, right? The smartest guy in the room usually has the most wisdom and has screwed it up enough to become the smartest guy in the room. And so maybe I was the smartest guy in the detailing room, but I kind of announced it, or at least denounced them denouncing me. And so when you walk into a room and you've done the work and you put in the effort and you're confident in that, and that's what I found from the most confident detailers. They're confident in the work that they put in, and they're not in competition with other people. And so in the beginning, I was in competition with people that we're not even doing the same thing. And so, and it was this sort of subconscious, they're in competition with me and I'm in competition with them. Now I think today people realize, if you're a professional detailer and you're working on cars all day and you're not creating content because you don't need to, because you have a great customer base, they're just happy that somebody's out there doing it for them, so that their customers are watching all these people online. They're watching Jimbo, they're watching Pan, they're watching Matt, they're watching, Apex Detail, they're watching whoever they're watching, and they're realizing, I don't want to spend 30 hours on this thing. I'm going to pay somebody to do it. And so I think that in the beginning, the detailing community didn't realize that there's room for everybody, and actually the rising tide raises all ships.
So as you're kind of I'm just thinking, so you're putting out all this content on YouTube. Are you obsessing over how your videos are doing on YouTube and trying to get into or is YouTube just that's just my outlet? That's just where I put this stuff that allows me to kind of soften the voices in my head.
I don't give a crap about views. I don't look at analytics. I like to answer comments. I've learned a lot from the comments. And so I still, read every single comment that comes through, through the YouTube studio. And I don't do it all at once. I just do it all day, every day, at all times. Same thing with email. I'm a zero inbox email guy. I don't have any unread emails. Everything's flagged and categorized, and I just stay on it all the time, so I never have to think about it. I've transitioned, Facebook messages and Instagram direct messages to somebody else, but I pick the one that I like doing the most, and that's YouTube comments. But that's the only thing I've ever done. I don't. One thing I would like to have, which really doesn't matter, but I'd like to have 1 million subscribers. If I get to 1 million, it just opens doors. When I call a brand and I want to sell their stuff, and you say, well, I have 1 million subscribers, I have 680 something thousand now. I found that it's very different. Once I got to 500,000, it was a very different conversation than at 200 or 100. So when I call Cree Lighting or when I call Rytech Doors, because most of the time with these brands, they don't have a very, how do I say this? they have a bunch of idiots in the social media departments, right? Right. They don't
There's that
have,
opinion, right?
well, they don't have people that are cutting edge. They don't have Gary V's working for them, right?
That's so interesting, though. It's like, the power of social media personally. Like, everyone pretty much has this awareness that social media is important. And then you have these brands that have such cool things. And then they have the crappiest social media on the face of the earth.
And so then they have that crappy, and then they literally have someone, me,
Right.
who's mastered this, calling them,
And they're like,
and
no,
saying,
thanks.
It's wild.
And it's always been like that for you, right? Like, you've always come against this.
Just this week, I have, this desk is from a company called BDI. They make the most amazing stuff. The linea behind me, my TV stand. I've started a brand business called Obsessed Home Theater, and so I call them and I want to become a dealer. You got nothing to lose,
Right.
and they send some 75-year-old lady who's like the sales rep for them, who has no idea what's going on in the world, and she's just cock blocking me the whole way. I'm showing her like. She thinks that their website is just amazing, and I said, you have nobody knows about your stuff. She said, well, we have quite a few followers. So I pulled up Instagram. They have 12,000 people. This is a 25, 30-year-old brand, and they make the coolest stuff on the planet, and they've made 10 posts in the last month. They should have 10 people just taking pictures from a different angle.
Right.
This is my backup plan, by the way, Jimbo. I'm gonna go get a job for brands and just convert their. It'd be so easy. Write a great description, take a bunch of photos, make a bunch of videos, go find a bunch of people to make videos about the stuff. So here I am. I'm showing up. I want to buy your stuff, so I want to pay you to buy your stuff and then promote it. No. What do you mean no?
That's what I don't understand. It's like, what do you mean no?
It's because it's really difficult. If you don't, so I was just talking about being blind to things.
Yeah.
They just can't. They know they need it. They know they want it. They're sitting in a boardroom trying to figure it out, and I'm standing in front of them with an invisible cloak on, right? And so they're also very concerned, which is rightfully so. They're very concerned that if, first of all, they've been burned in the e-commerce world, right? Because they let people go and just vomit out, discount down to zero, race to zero. So put it on all the different, Amazon and Walmart Marketplace and race to zero. They've been burned on that a couple of times, so then they get dug in. So they don't understand it. They don't know what to do with it. It's blind to them. Their CEO doesn't know that their people are cock-blocking business. If I can get the darn CEO on the phone, he would be yelling and screaming, from the
Have you ever tried to get to the CEO via hey, come on my podcast?
Well,
have you ever
sometimes
tried that?
I get to him, through LinkedIn or or others, and if this lady tells me no, she needs to be fired immediately.
Yeah.
There is literally nothing to lose. But again,
wouldn't there be even commission in it for her too? Why?
But they're concerned about, especially seasoned salespeople. They already have their customers.
Okay.
And they're content.
Yeah.
And last thing they want is their big customer to call complaining that they let some jerk off on YouTube. Even though what'll happen is they'll sell more stuff because more people will know about it. But it doesn't matter. That was the big pushback in detailing.
I remember.
With Krensla and stuff. They're like, well, why are you letting them sell this? And they'd say, well, Tim, you were selling 1 and now you're selling 12. Yeah. But I could have sold all of them. Well, yeah, but you weren't and you didn't. But now you're selling 12. And then they call back, well, you're still letting him do this. He's selling a lot of them. He said, no, now, Tim, you're selling 24 a month. And you were selling...
Tim, shut up. Does anyone need to tell you that?
But they won't do that because they're so afraid of losing Tim because they don't believe what I'm doing is real. And so I've had to learn how to put myself in their shoes. Yeah. Although I was kind of yelling at this old lady that was over.
I mean, I guess it's a matter of perspective too, similar to what you said with detailers. They don't know what they don't know, so it's hard to see it from your perspective because they don't even know the perspective that you have, right? It could actually be said from the brand standpoint too of like, well, Matt doesn't understand that like we've been on Walmart.com and Amazon and knockoffs and blah blah blah. But one thing you used to say, or you said maybe at SEMA at some point, like when you were having trouble with these detailing companies, is like you offered to pay up front. Like I'll pay
Yeah.
for everything up front. So
I
then
don't want
that's
anything for free.
yeah, it's like that's an even added layer of retardation, if we could say that word, on the brand of like he's gonna pay up front. Like I'm trying to give you my money.
So it's the current distribution network and the disruption of the current cash cow that they have. And most people innately are kind of comfortable in where they're at, and they don't want to push. They don't want to take a risk. I had that here recently where I didn't buy. So in the home theater space, they are much more mature in their distribution network than detailing was or is still today. I mean, you're talking a 50-year, 60-year business, and so these brands have really dug in policies, and so. I had the problem with a lot of the home theater gear is it's really expensive. It's different than buying a bottle of detail spray, or even buying a whole line of products costs say $1,200, and I could buy the entire Coach Chemi line, right? Maybe Coach Chemi's $3,000, and so I'm buying a preamplifier that's $20,000 and a couple of amplifiers that are $5,500 a piece. And so this company's sort of after us about marketing and talking about it. And I'm like, man, I really don't want to pay for that because I don't even think I'm going to like it. And so I told them, well, if you want us to look at it, just send it to us. And then I feel beholden to them. Like I can't say what I need to say. And I did. And then they got mad. Right. And then I feel, and I haven't softened it quite a bit from what it should have been. And so my own lesson of just buy it, then I can say what needs to be said, not say what they want me to say. And my time is too valuable to be testing something and not make a video on it.
Right.
And so if it sucks, I keep my mouth shut and I send it back to them. I find that to be a waste of my time.
Totally.
So if I'm gonna invest, in this one preamplifier, I probably spent 30 hours on the thing, testing it and working on it and trying to get it to work and troubleshooting it and videoing it and editing all this stuff. That 30 hours, I mean, I don't know what I make, $3,000-$4,000 an hour. I can't waste that time.
Right.
And so I made videos on it and they got all mad at me. And so then I wished, had I bought it, just ordered it, then I could say whatever the heck I want.
Did you still have to did you send it back to them or
we will? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Got it.
Now I've been able to kind of get them back around and say, look, the redemption story is extremely valuable. People are going to believe you. If you fix the things that I'm saying suck, I know you wanted me to say, well, it's kind of good. You should still buy it, but that's not true. I said, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to just lie to them? Lie to everybody and say you should buy this? Well, I'm not buying it.
Right. Because then that discredits you, right? Then someone buys it, and then they're like, "Oh, this kind of sucks."
Them too. Right.
Where the real power is in that redemption story, like you said.
Yeah, this sucks. Oh, now it doesn't suck so bad. And then they send me the 5th iteration, and man, this thing's great. They listened.
I think that's something brands are so like
dumb,
stupid, and they're so unwilling to do that, right? Of be vulnerable when they may be wrong or they may have it wrong. Right.
And that's what's happening. That's what's changing in the world. And that's where now these guys will be, I'm confident that if they make something great, we'll be best friends and they'll laugh about this because I've had this happen 350 times now, where they say no. And I finally convince them and they say yes with all these crazy conditions. And they usually try to renege on the deal too. They try to get out of it. They try to get out of the deal. And because they get 5 calls from their biggest vendors. What are you letting these people do this? They're stealing our business. And then I convinced them to let me do it. And then at the end of the day, after 2 years later, the vendors keep their mouth shut because they know they're getting a benefit from it. Because for one thing I get to sell, there's 20 that are sold elsewhere. We've done some of these case studies with some products. So I get to sell one of them, but I'm responsible for 20 others. And so it's a rising tide. And so even when I share that data of examples, I still get a lady from BDI here basically going to say no. It's pretty wild. But so to answer that, we got off on a tangent here, but the 1 million subscribers, that number will all help grease the wheels. It's help grease the wheels in the future to get them to allow me to provide them value. I have no interest in getting things for free. I very rarely get anything for free. It's so funny you see in the comments, like, you got it for free. I'm like, no, I bought it. Now, most of the time I buy it wholesale because I'm going to resell, things. But I would say of all the things you've seen me put on YouTube, I probably bought 98% of the things. The 2% that I got, half of those went awry because I hated it, right? And it just created problems for them and me. And then that other 1% was like, they just talked me into it, and said, no, we'll give this to you. But almost everything, I've gotten Adam LZ more free stuff than I've gotten. I've gotten other people more free stuff than I've gotten. And so, because I found that getting that free thing creates a job. Now I work for you. Jimbo, when you sent me some sprays, I feel this immense sense of obligation. Like, oh my, I should have told them no, because I should have just bought it, because now I don't have time to deal with it, and now I feel it's in my cabinet. It's still in my cabinet, and I don't keep things in my cabinet.
You're doing a podcast in exchange
I feel
for
this
it.
Immense set of obligation. It has nothing to do with you, and I know you don't care, but I do, and so
you may actually like it if you try it. I'm just saying.
Maybe, and I
maybe
will.
not. Maybe you'll say it sucks. That's okay
right.
too.
And actually saying it sucks means that the people who like you will be even more inclined to buy it. It's like a win. You can't lose. This is the argument to the brands as I try to convince them.
But that is true too, right? Like silence is actually the worst thing for a brand, right? No one talking about it is the worst thing for it, right? I will say it is hurtful when people talk bad about your brand when it's smaller, but anyway, how do you deal, or what is kind of your feelings on, I remember back to when, and they corrected it, but McGuire's did like a Crensless setup in a cabinet, a full obsessed garage layout. Maybe it was in their garage, and they didn't give credit to you because.
Well, I sold it to him, so
you did?
that's a bad example. Yeah.
No, well, but it seemed like, at least watching from afar, because I didn't know any of that, but it looked like, they didn't give credit. And then the comments were like, why don't you give credit? Why don't you give credit? Which they did, right? They ended up saying, oh yeah, well, it's from Obsessed Garage or whatever. Right. But what do you like? What's kind of your feelings, or do you not even think about it? People that are like kind of ripping off your style, trying to copy your videos, maybe even doing like cheaper versions of it. Obviously but everyone has a different budget, but like there's so many obsessed garage style setups now. Does it bug you, or do you not even think about it?
It did for a long time. Because I'm getting freaking screwed, but at least that's the way I thought of it. And I would just complain about it to myself, or complain about it to the vendors. Same complaining that that people did about me, I started doing, because now I'm the incumbent, right?
Yeah.
And so I decided to create one day. This is several years ago. I'm like, you know what? And I knew it was going to take me several years to execute on this, and I'm getting pretty close on some of these at executing it. The complaining about things as good. Instead, create a bigger problem and then sit down and solve it. So I've had many different companies over the years. It started with Crensless. No one was buying Crensless. No one really knew much about it. I think Philip Detailer's Domain had it, and there was one like represented on Amazon, not in detailing, they were just selling on Amazon. Those are really so Phil was the only one in detailing that had the Crensless or really knew anything about it. And I actually didn't buy it from Phil. I had bought it before I found Phil. I just just pure flyer, looking for a great pressure washer and just doing my nightly research. And so I think I bought it from that Amazon, representative. And so when I decided, so I was making all these videos early on in 2014, on my bare feet with no microphone, it's out of focus. And the very first video I made was me washing my Carrera S with the Krenzla and sharing my $500 hose setup, garden hose setup, and everybody getting mad about that because I bought an Adams hose and an Ely hose reel. It was $500, and I wasn't super rich then, and I just really valued washing. And then I had this Krenzla setup, which I took a flyer on, and I had kind of rigged together some fittings and stuff like that. And then I had no concept for what that would lead to, of course, in 2017, when I finally decided, you know what, I'm tired of sending people dead links to companies that keep going out of business. I couldn't or you had to open a wholesale account to buy these fittings. And so I decided to call MTM and Mosmatic and Krenzla and become a dealer. Of course, two told me no, and then one told me yes, and I leveraged the one to get the other two to tell me yes. And then I actually sat down and put a spreadsheet together and added up. I'm like, holy crap, this is $1,575. No one's going to buy this. I just committed to buying, $30,000 worth of stuff. I'm never going to be able to sell it. And then I sold 50 grand of them that first, and 60 and 70. I had no idea. But I had no concept. And by the way, I had no interest in doing this. Right. And so I was at Merrill Lynch, and I thought Obsessed Garage was my way to get clients in wealth management. I thought it was a way for me to find like-minded people where I could manage their money. And so I didn't negotiate any deal with Krenzla. I was just happy that they let me buy it because they told me no. Same thing with all these brands over the years, the bead makers that kind of happened that I had a part of, or the Active 2.0s that I had I had a large part in that. And so I didn't ask for anything. I just was happy to be included. And so then what happens is, then once people start learning about the Krenzla, then they get calls from everybody. Hey, I want to sell that. I want to sell that. I want to sell that. And these aren't people these are the people that are watching the videos, and their natural tendency is to copy, right? The esoterics of the world, the Chicago Auto Pros of the world, they're not calling to copy because they're originators. They have original thought. So they're not calling to copy. It's the worst of the worst. They don't have their own audience. So Krenzla takes the pie that I accidentally created, and they just start cutting pieces off and handing it off to others. And then it got worse to where not only are they handing out pieces of the pie, now there's none in stock. And so then I can't even get it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm complaining about this. I'm like, why are you guys screwing me? They're like, Matt, you're getting the lion's share of it. I said, yeah, but I made the freaking pizza, and you're cutting it up, and I paid for it, and you're handing it off. And we all agree that they would never admit it, but they agree to it. You agree to it. I agree to it. The other retailers, everybody agrees to it. But there's nothing. I never came up with any solution. I'm just complaining, right? And I only complain about it maybe once every 2 years to them, and they just said, "What do you want us to do? Sorry, tough luck."
And that's still their stance on it.
Or they wouldn't admit it. So they just say, well, we had a business before you existed, Matt, or whatever. And so, and they're right. They're 100% right. And so I had to, give that up, give up that, well, this is capitalism. This is what I signed up for, right? Capitalism is AKA copyism, just copy.
Yeah.
It sucks, but it's the truth. And so I also got a lesson why, when we go into that back room at McGuire's, when they're touring me around, their cameras off. Sign an NDA before you walk in the door, because they've been at this for 100 years and they've been screwed. And so then they become very, very quiet. And I'm the opposite of that. I'm sharing with you every step of the way. So I'm giving them the formula. And so I decided, well, why don't I create a bigger problem here? I've got people copying. Why don't I teach them how to copy and then build it on a website to send them to buy it, make it easier for them. And then why don't I be in control of the product, so that way, and figure out a way to be in control of the product, so that way I get to choose people who bring their own pie. and we don't just have this cannibalization of overlap. And so I'll pick the retailers because I'm in the trenches. I know who the best retailers are. I know who can provide and add value. Some of them I don't have a relationship with. Some of them, they don't like me, but I believe in them, and I'm going to try to talk them into, hey, can we put this aside? And you guys have your own audience. You can provide real value to this. This is the best product. Or maybe I won't call them, but I'll have somebody else call them on some other LLC where they can feel better about it, or something like that.
So you become like the master distributor and get the
Correct.
exclusive, and then break it. You can break down the pie how you see fit.
But here's the problem with that. Obsessed Garage is not a retailer. So what do I do with that? So now I have another problem. I can't sell every Coach Chemi product. Let's say that, like Andrew is a good friend of mine, and he represents, let's just say hypothetically, Andrew decides to retire, and Coach Chemi comes to me and says, Matt, we want Obsessed Garage to represent Coach Chemi. And I tell him, well, that's great, but I only like 3 of your products.
Right.
So I only sell 3. And so that creates a whole nother problem. And so I've had to sort of figure out how to solve that. So I don't know if I want to divulge. I guess I could divulge all my secrets.
No, I'm not. No.
But the concept here was to. So I started with, I'm just happy to be here. Then I'm complaining. Then I negotiated some royalty deals on, hey, if you sell this product, you're going to sell 10,000 of it. If I start selling it, then all these retailers are going to call you. You're going to sell 5 million of it, because nobody knows about it. So I'm not responsible for all 5 million, but I'm responsible for lighting the match, for making the market.
Okay.
So if the market isn't made, then nobody cares, right? Nobody jumps on board. So you need a market maker. And I'm not always the market maker. Larry Costello is a market maker. Esoteric's a market maker. You're a market maker. It just depends on, depends on the audience, depending on how big the niche is. What you need is Pan's a huge market maker, right? And so he lights the match, and then a product can take off if the rest of us all jump on board and are interested in it. Like Merca is making the darn Merca polisher. I don't know if you've gotten your hands on one of these things. They've been making that stupid 3-inch polisher. It's $900 for like 5 years, and no one gave a crap about it. It needed the match to get lit. And so when I light the match, then that's the most valuable part of the whole thing. And so I negotiated a royalty on things, and then they didn't pay. They paid 1 royalty. And then, because I did a handshake deal, and then I get a contract, and then they wiggle out of the contract. And so in the future, I'll just negotiate, like, look, I'm the master distributor. Right? I get to buy all of it and then figure out how to distribute it all, throughout the marketplace. So
I was saying with Kosh Chemi, right? Maybe it would be just like a separate, like an arm of Obsessed Garage, but it's a whole distribution company, I guess, that carries the whole line or something.
So I don't think, and you've been after me for years, like, man, why don't you make your own line? I don't think I can do it the way that I would want it done. My whole thesis is that a great product, you got to get lucky. There's certain formulas and things, there's certain recipes, right, that certain things that soaps do, and yes, you can choose the scent and you can adjust it, but there's something that magically happens to brands like Griot's interior cleaner. Somebody at some point mixed something up in the right sequence combination, and it just caught lightning in a bottle. And
I would push back on that a little bit. I think the magic, though, sometimes, actually, to your point, is the label on the outside of the bottle.
Sometimes
and the brand behind it, For
sure. But for me to go to you, and we go to Projet, and or Warner or something like that, and we go there and we sit down, I think every product would take me 15 years to get it to where I would want it to be. Right.
Could be. Well, and that's why a lot of people start with like the baselines of products. If you like that Griot's product, right, it would be like, okay, well, if you have it, I wouldn't recommend Projet because they don't have these capabilities, which is why I moved away from them. But like a lot of people, or bead maker, whatever product, right? Hey, I really like this product. If you take bead maker, everyone talks about it collects dust. Okay. So I want bead maker, but I want it to not create dust. Right. And so then a capable chemist would look at the, charge of bead maker and be like, oh, well, it has too much of a negative charge. We need to make it a positive charge and blah, blah. So you could start with the foundation, but it probably would take a long time. And then if you don't, one thing I've noticed in private label, what makes it so hard when you send someone a clear bottle with no label and you tell them, hey, this is bead maker, but it doesn't collect dust, it doesn't have the bead maker label. So it doesn't feel, it doesn't have the brand behind it, you know? And so people are like, well, are you sure you just didn't send me orange water?
Brand is more important than product. Brand is more important than patent. Brand is more important than anything. You know,
100%.
And brand is easily squandered, easily damaged, easily tarnished, and that's one of the things that I think is it's more important than anything else is to protect brand, and so that's one of the things that I've been very cognizant of, and have from the like I didn't call it Matt Moreman's detailing, you know, I called it Obsessed Garage, and so there is the potential that brand could outlive me, you know, and so if I protect it, if I don't screw it up, if I continue to build it, and that brand doesn't, back to our original conversation, it doesn't, or the start of the conversation, it doesn't mean that it's for everybody. It doesn't have to be for everybody. In fact, it's probably better if it's not for everybody. But it can reach what you're looking to accomplish is to reach everybody that it's targeted to, and so I just think that there's a pathway for me to capture what I'm responsible for, without complaining about it, and doing it intelligently. So, these darn press-all bottles that I've been after for 6 darn years, and they kind of work, and then they didn't work, and then they kind of worked, and they kind of worked a little better, and they kind of worked a little better, and I had that pact with my following, my customers, with all these people. Hey, these things, I don't know if they're going to work. No warranties. Don't be a freaking baby. Don't buy them if you don't want to throw it away. It's part of the deal. And then a few people went and copied it, and they didn't have that pact with the people, their customers. And so now there's this adage, well, the press-up bottles suck. So, well, no, they weren't done. You just didn't know that. You're too stupid because you're copying this. And so now I have them. I'll send you some. They're freaking insane. Now they're going to be $20 a piece, $19.50 each, which is insane. But that's what it costs for it to exist. And so I have had to negotiate to say, well, I've been working on this. I staked my reputation on it. I'm lighting the match. I already lit the match. Now I'm going to stoke the flame with the bottle that's amazing, that we can stand behind. And everybody's going to be buzzing about it. And what I don't want is to get screwed. So every single one that gets sold in the entire world comes through me. I don't care about the other stuff. I don't care about exclusivity on your other products. These 2 products, all of it comes through me.
Do you think stuff sometimes only seems expensive because the cheaper alternative has been so prevalent for so long?
Yeah, it's just like this is what the expectations have been set. This is what people believe, and Apple has bucked that trend on a lot of things, right? I'm sitting here with about 2 iPhones and a $7,000 screen, and I got Apple all over the darn place. I appreciate that, and a lot of the Android guys and PC guys are sitting there scoffing at how I could be so stupid.
They've obviously never experienced AirDrop. Right, because as soon as you experience AirDrop, it goes, everything else goes up.
And they're right that the sophistication of open source is far superior. But I don't want that. I want the fit. I want the finish. I want the brand. And so I want that, and I'm willing to pay for that. And so in this case, with say Press-All, it's I made it what it needed to be, not to a price point. And so we're so conditioned to buy things and that was the same thing with Krenslow, same thing with the entire Obsessed Garage catalog. Almost everything there is made what it needs to be, and then we figure out how to make it, and then we figure out what that costs. And so what's the price got to be in order for me to make a couple of bucks to be in business to find the next product. And so Press-All is the same case, where we're competing with a bottle that costs 30 cents to make, and a sprayer that costs, retail costs $1.50. and people just accepted that. Well, I didn't accept that because this is something I interact with all the time, like every single day. And so I'm willing to pay for it, just like I'm willing to pay for a fancy phone because I interact with this every single day. And I'm willing to pay for certain applications that I interact with every single day. And so I'm willing to pay for that. And so same thing with a spray bottle. Now, most people they don't interact with a spray bottle every day, so they're not looking for that. They're not willing to pay for that. But there's a lot of people that probably would.
Like a door handle. I remember my wife and I were redoing our house, and I was like, I've lived in so many crappy apartments that like the doors to the bathroom don't shut right, or there's like 800 layers of paint and the lock doesn't lock. I'm like, when we got the chance to remodel our house, I'm like, I have two requirements: solid core doors and nice door handles. Right. So we went like MTech hinges and handles with a solid core door. And I'm like, I just want the damn door to shut and lock because it's something I interact with all day long. Right.
And other people might say you're ridiculous. Why would you pay for that? That's nonsense. It's a complete waste of time.
They've clearly never seen MTech then. Right.
Right. Let me let this little turkey out here.
Okay.
Chase, get out of here. Go on a second. Leave me alone.
He was really bugging you, Matt. He was really riling you up in there.
He starts to huff, like he's like, "Let me out," and then he drives me crazy, and I can't think of anything else.
So what does, we're at the tail end of, I don't know when this is going to come out, maybe a week or two, but we're at the tail end of 2024. What does 2025 look like in the vein of living intentionally like you do so well, right? Whether it's because you have to or because you like to. What does the future? He came back in for you. You're
unbelievable. It's messing up my shot here with the door half open.
No one's gonna care, but if you care, you can close it.
That's fine.
But what is 2025 and beyond? What is the building out the whole obsessed home solution? Is that where you're at, or what is the future look like?
I think that I haven't fully. So maybe let's see if I can figure this out. And with you and I here, I haven't fleshed this out completely. I think that content going forward, videos going forward, is more about each individual thing that you make versus having to have it all work, right? So I'm a detailer, so I've got to only make content on detailing. Whereas my whole thing, and I've been doing this from the beginning, I just do whatever the heck I'm doing. Mountain biking one day, and then building the desk the next day, and dealing with a faucet, and then polishing my car, and then doing a wash and talk, and then driving in the mountains, and then getting a car and looking for an exhaust. So I've always shared. Now there's sort of a common theme here that when I'm obsessed with something, there becomes a lot of information provided, and I think that's really hurt me in the past. It hurts the ability. You see, like my friend Pan just makes videos on detailing. He sticks to it, and he's has a much bigger following. It's very specific. People know what to expect from him. They know what to expect. They know what he's gonna produce. Larry Kosilla, same thing. They know he has a brand. It's very specific. They know what to expect. The biggest content creators, with the biggest following and the most broad appeal, stick to a formula. They stick to the plan. They might sprinkle in a little bit here and there, but I've just never done that. I've just gone, each individual post, each individual video stands alone. And I'm not looking how it fits together unless I'm doing like a series, right? But that series stands alone. That video stands alone. And so I think one of the things that has been most valuable to the people that are purchasing things from me and are watching me and following me, that are inside the Hex members, the most valuable things to them are me sharing life. Well, I just told you the story of how I'm trying to negotiate business deals. You should probably keep that to yourself. But if I do, then I don't get that real engagement, that real sort of bought inness of, if that's a word, of the people that are following along, the people that are sitting on the bucket watching me, wash the car and hanging out with me in the garage. So I just listened to this yesterday. I haven't listened. I went to Gary Vee's 4Ds in the past, and it was a really important. I'm not a self-help kind of guy, and it was really important in my transition from wealth management into Obsessed Garage full time. I went to 4Ds right after that, and it was an important voice in my head at that time, and so I haven't really needed him. I haven't consumed very much, and something popped up on the YouTube algorithm, and it was a 4Ds course where they just put a camera on him, and he had shared, which is exactly what I'm doing by accident. He had shared this individual content, these individual pieces of content. They don't need to fit together. You just don't know what's going to hit, what's going to pop, what's going to resonate with somebody, and the more you can create, the better. It's not which one. It's not Obsessed Home or Obsessed Garage or Destination OG or whatever else, or Obsessed Home Theater. It's and. Everything's and. Because it doesn't have, like, I can put home theater videos on my Obsessed Garage because it's and. People are consuming so much from so many different places. You know, there are some that are watching everything and they're questioning why that fits. But if I'm interested in it, I'm passionate about it, why not and? And so the other thing he had talked about, which is exactly what my brain was headed towards, was local. So I've been traveling around all over the country. I'd go to McGuire's and shoot a video series. In the beginning, it was detailing. And then it was garage cabinets and tools, and traveling all over the place, and SEMA and finding products. And then it was home stuff, going to the builder's show and going to looking for appliances and going to Waterstone and seeing how they make a faucet. And so instead of me having to go around, and then we've gone around and built people's garages. You've seen that, and built these amazing garages.
That barn houses in Northern California is like, just, oh my gosh.
Wild. Yeah, really, really cool. And so that needs to exist. Like, people need to see that. They want to see that. And so why am I traveling around? Because it's not very efficient. I can only do like one of those a year. And so why don't I just do that here locally? And then create the content around that. And because content can stand alone, if I'm building somebody's outdoor kitchen, that stands alone from me paint correcting my Raptor, right? They can all exist. It's not which one, it's and. Do both. Do it all. And so I'm going to put it all together in a brick and mortar design studio. Now, brick and mortar is stupid. Localized, not the most intelligent thing to do in the current Amazon world. But I'm viewing the brick and mortar as my and. I can put it all in one spot. And then you can follow along with me. Most people aren't going to come and see it. They're not going to come and physically see it, but they're going to see it on video. And then we're going to build install teams, and we're going to drive around. Now, I'd always thought I would do this in detailing, but something in my gut told me that, you know, detailing is a component of all the things that go together. If you walk through my warehouse and you look at these 5,000 different things, those 5,000 things create a thing, create a house, you know, create an obsessed lifestyle, create a home. And detailing is a major component of that. The flooring, the lighting, the garage, the tools, the dishwasher, the home theater, all the desk, the speaker, all of it goes together. The continuity cam, it all is a piece, an individual piece of a subset of obsession that I had at that moment in time, and then I'm sharing and hopefully providing value. So I'm going to put that together in a brick and mortar design studio, so that way I can go out and put it in people's garages all over the area. And then by me sharing that, I'm sharing the business part of it. I'm sharing how I'm advertising in a newspaper, how I'm advertising on Facebook. I'm sharing, you know, here's what the lease negotiation looked like. I'm sharing, by the way, here's us building the garage in the design studio. I'm sharing, here's me hiring and building the install teams. So I'm sharing the business building, which then will make other business owners interested in it. And guess who the best customers are? They're business owners, right? Or they're executives. They're people that are interested in the process and the sharing of it. And so I'm going to do that here locally, because now I can scale my time rather than I've got to plan, 2 months ahead, and I got to fly to Texas, and I got to build some guy's garage, and I got to live off site, and I'm miserable, and it takes me 2 weeks when I get home to recover. Instead, I can create content at scale of all of these ands. And then by proxy, I'll build a pretty profitable local business. But the main goal is the national and international content that I can provide to the rest of the world. So 2025 for me looks like that. I build this design studio. I invest in it. It's a brick and mortar place. That place, I don't want it to be a loss leader. I want it to be a profit center. My fear is that becomes a $100 million business, and I'm serving all these local people where we're doing like real simple garages. We're not going to be building that Southern California insane garage. We'll be building a 2-car with some flooring and lighting and some cabinets, but we'll be doing that in the hundreds or thousands of garages. But that has broad appeal. That has interesting appeal. Show the transformations. So we're starting the OG Builds channel, Obsessed Builds, and so that channel will be attached to Obsessed Garage. I'll pick the flagship ones and go share it. And so design is the biggest part of my future, and then I'm in the pursuit of finding the best desk and finding the best light bulbs and finding the best faucet. I think I've found the best kitchen cabinets, and then putting together the whole ecosystem and providing people this service, and then from there see where it goes. But I think I do it locally, and I share with people. Do yourself a favor, go check out the 4Ds. Everybody's watching this, the 4Ds video. I think it was yesterday's video on Gary V's channel, on the Gary V YouTube channel. And he talks about this, and it's funny. He put together exactly what I've been working on and what I'm doing. And I felt a little uncomfortable with this. Why am I doing this? But it feels right. The main reason I decided to do it here was so that I can contribute locally. I thought I would move away. I'd move to some cool place someday. But I'm here. My kids are here. My family's here. My employees' families are here. And so, there's something to be said about, acquiring power in your local community. It's not about the arrogance of power, but it's the power to contribute. It's the power to find great employees. It's the power to enrich others around you. And that comes from contributing to the community. And doing so is going to require me to build a local business.
And community feels, first of all, that sounds amazing. And that you're so clear and concise on that. I think that's awesome. But there is something that feels so good about having just community around, and like that's giving, but then also having that support too, of like, you can give a job, but you also need someone that wants a job too at the same time, right? And it's interesting what you said about content, because I feel like I don't watch detailing content a bunch, but I intentionally didn't like lead this conversation about detailing because I've been feeling that about content in general too. And I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this, just with the whole content creation landscape in general. Is like, I feel like, well, you kind of did already say it, but I feel like so many people do pigeonhole themselves, myself included, right? Of like only talking about detailing content because I have the auto detailing podcast, right? This is going out on the auto detailing podcast. But one thing that I've been wrestling with and starting to think about and is that why do I only have to talk about detailing? Like even a full-time detailer, that's still only one aspect of that person's life. It may be a bigger aspect of their life than, say, detailing is in yours or whatever, but there's so many more angles of that person's life than just detailing that
For
people
sure.
may be interested in, And I also see, like, you brought up Pan, and it's like I look at his content lately since launching his brand, which I understand, but it doesn't seem like that content is resonating as much with people, at least in the form of views, right?
But he needs to put that together. He needs that to exist, and that way So it's the same thing with me. Like if I get hot on a subject, you'll see 50 videos about that subject, because I feel like it needs to exist. And if I don't care as much about how it all fits and the greater views and the greater, the greater like and just driving views forward. But I feel like, I needed to have, like, at one time when I was doing the Krenza pressure wash, I made 13 videos on all the fittings. right? And so it's like fitting, and then people are like, well, shoot, Matt, he's jumped the shark. I want him to go in the mountains and drive a GT3,
Right.
And so Pan, when he creates a line, he needs to create that information, create that content, and then make a choice. Am I willing to sacrifice some of the broad appeal in order to create and get the information out there that I think needs to exist? Then you make that choice, and you might lose some people along the way. So if Jimbo starts talking about Jordans, and you're talking about your sneaker game, and it becomes 50% of your content. You have to make that choice. My friend Adam LZ made the transition from BMX to drifting. And he didn't lose anything. In fact, he gained a lot. And so you can, like in Pan's case, he's going to gain a lot from he might lose something, but he'll probably gain something in replacement of it. But you have to go with your gut and what feels right. And I talk to him a lot, and I know that he stresses out about this. Like, man, how I think what I'm making is great, and I want to share that with people, but I also don't want to lose everybody along the way. So how do you do that? And you just you don't know, and you just experiment with it, and you kind of test the waters and see how it works.
I think that's a good point too. Sometimes we look at such a snapshot in time without looking at the bigger picture of it all. And like you said, if that's the content that needs to be out there for people to find because it is valuable, then it's worth the moment in time. Right.
It's so funny how everybody's trying to, Payne and I are buddies, and the people trying to catch us in some feud or something, because I busted his chops, said I'm not interested in your crap, and he's like, I'm telling you, Matt, I'm going to get you to love it. It's the best. And I said, no way it's the best. And so it might be, who knows? But I told him, don't send it to me, because I don't want to tell you it sucks and you're going to hate me for it.
Yeah.
But people are always looking for some I feel like I'm part of this. The theme of this conversation is maybe that would have been a thing, several years ago, had I tried the stuff and didn't like it, and then I had to, and said I didn't like it, and then it creates all kinds of drama and stuff. But I understand why he's creating the product line. It makes sense to me.
100% makes sense to have, the fact that he waited so long to do it, I think is the craziest thing about it, but it 100% makes sense.
For sure. And it probably would have made sense for me to make my own line, but I've chosen a different path, and largely because, like I said, detailing, I don't want to be beholden to detailing my whole life.
Right.
I'm always going to be detailing. I'm always going to be selling detailing as part of the ecosystem of my existence. 10% of my existence is like 150% of a rational human. Right. So I mean, at one point it was a much higher percentage. It was probably 25% of my existence. But that's because I had to solve a lot of the things I wasn't certain of. So right now, 25% of my existence is in the home theater space, or because I'm solving problems that I don't have the answer to, and that's what motivates. That's what gets me excited. That's what gets me up in the morning. Man, I got to find a new preamplifier that most of the world doesn't care about.
When your alarm goes off, that's just your first thought of find it.
Actually, you know what I was obsessed about here recently was pens. So I got this desk set up, and so I've been buying all these pens. I bought, and look at this, you'll think this is freaking, I'm a psychopath. So I just started writing my name down, with different pens.
Yeah.
So I bought 22 different pens, from all over the world. Most of them are Japanese.
Okay.
So I bought all these imported pens from jetpens.com. I found some guy who has a pen podcast. Now, I don't want to listen to his podcast, but I used his website where he has a top 5 list of all types of pens. And so I bought everything on his list. He has like 20 different top 5 lists.
Okay.
And so then I sat here, and what my superpower is to figure out which one I like the best. And I can't even quantify it. There's no scientific method here. It's just gut and life and whatever culmination of life experience. And so I guarantee you, people are watching, they're going to know which one do I like the most. I don't know which one yet, but I think it's the Uniball Signo DX 0.38 size. I'm pretty sure this is my favorite pen, and it's only like $2 or $3.
I was gonna say, is it easy to get that pen?
From Jet Pens, yeah, and they have a bunch of different colors. I think this is good, but
Do you
then
have a preference on color too? Like, do you only test black or
that's what I
only
need to
blue?
figure out.
Okay.
So I ordered one of all 22 pens. Now they make this in like 20 different colors. So now, do I like
Okay.
blue black? Do I like black? Do I like blue? You know, do I want a red one? But then there's this one here that kind of throws me for a loop. There's a high tech C. And so this high tech from Pilot, it's a Japanese pen. They make it in a 0.25, which I'm not sure, it might be too fine. And so this is what now at some point I'll probably have pens on my freaking website. And so I'll make a video on me jerking around with pens and talking about and then some pen expert will come in and scoff at this, just like detailing, right?
Right.
They'll come in and scoff at this. How dare you? You don't even know what you're talking about. But I'm sharing the process. I'm sharing the pursuit to become a subject matter expert. Same thing in home theater. Like, you have no business. You stick to garages. And I find that extremely motivating when somebody says that to me. I said, just hang on, just keep watching. First of all, you don't know my background because you're new to the videos here, right? You don't know that I've spent half my life in the home theater space. Now that means that I'm a little removed from it, so I've got to rebuild the database in my head, and I'm going to become whatever level expert I feel like I need to become in order to make a decision to buy the product that I buy. And then the value subset that I can create is that, well, then a lot of people want to know what to buy, and it seems that the rest of the world, especially on YouTube, is so concerned about taking a stand. Jimbo, buy this freaking pen. And you know what, man? I'd love it if you'd buy it from me. Here's a link. Would you honor the source? And some people say, you know what? And he charges $2 more for the pen because he doesn't have the same buying power that maybe other pen people do. But I'm going to buy it from him because he was the source. Man, I'm just glad that somebody took a stand. This is what I should use. And so, like in Pan's example, he's taken a stand. This is what I think you should use. And yes, it's mine, and that's where he took a lot of heat from the detailing community because they don't want it. They don't want him doing that. But you take a stand, and I think that's how you win in the world of business. Is you have to decide. All right, this is the microphone to buy. This is the desk pad to buy. This is the pen to get. And what my life has been sharing and building the credibility through being authentic, through showing all of life and all the wins and losses, and talking about the details. So that way, when I do have a statement to make that people believe in, as long as I don't let them down, there may be a preference difference, but as long as I don't let them down and lie to them and really dishonestly, like with that receiver, that preamplifier that I thought was junk, as long as I don't lie to them and I can make mistakes still, like I can send them a press-all bottle that isn't quite right, as long as I tell them the truth, tell them the specifics. And the right people that are intelligent, the best customers, they can sniff out truth or fallacy, truth or dishonesty. It's not even about being dishonest, just leaving things out. I don't like to leave stuff out.
Right. Is someone into horses in your family? I see that horse picture behind you.
You want to know that story?
Yeah.
So in 2018, I lost my front tooth. Right, so my front tooth died. When I was young, I was skateboarding, and I hit my tooth when I was like 6 or 7, and I fell, and I think that may have just killed it. Right when the tooth. When the tooth came in, it didn't fall out, but it chipped it, and it must have taken some sort of impact. And so, the root curse of my obsessive compulsive disorder is my fear of passing out. And so when I go to the doctor, I don't know what it's from, but my autonomic system, I have this fight or flight mechanism where my body just shuts down. My brain shuts down, the blood goes to protect my vital organs, and I lose consciousness. And so my entire existence is obsessing over that thing, that fear of passing out. Right. And so that's where the obsessive compulsive disorder really manifests. And so the ultimate panic attack is you lose consciousness. Right. That's really what it is. And so most people's bodies, like it doesn't do that. Like you just don't, your angst or your adrenaline level will never get to the point to where you could even force it if you wanted to, but some people just have it. You see a spider and you panic, you pass out. Mine is going to the doctor. And so in 2014, Michelle had Kate. I passed out in the living room. I've told you this story before. I was the senior resident director of Merrill Lynch. I thought I was awesome. I had taken the weight of the world on myself, and I passed out. And then I almost passed out in a store, and something clicked in my brain where, oh shoot, I could pass out anywhere, anytime. So I always, like right now, I can't drive. So I have $500,000 worth of cars below us in this room, and I can't freaking drive any of them. I can drive around the block, but that's about it. And so in 2018, I found out I was losing my tooth, and it was a freaking disaster. Like the whole 2014 thing where I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't function happened again. And so I couldn't watch, like if I was listening to the radio, if somebody said some word wrong, like if they said blood, I would freak out. If they said, and it just started to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and my world kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so that's when I found my current psychologist. I did a bunch of genetic testing. I found a great psychiatrist. I found out that most OCD medication, which is usually just an antidepressant, doesn't work. I can't metabolize it. I found out also that I can't process folic acid, which is what's in white bread. And so at that time, I was just looking for something simple. And so I found the show on Netflix called Heartland. This is wild. And which is a teenage girl who is a horse whisperer.
My daughter watches it.
It's set in Canada. I love Canada. I don't know why I love Canada. I love Canadians. I just think they're amazing people. I want to have a ranch in Alberta someday. I'm actually opening our Canadian distribution facility in the next 3 weeks. I just like Canada. I like the people in Canada, and I like the landscape. I don't want to live there in the winter.
I was going to say, do you like the winter?
No. And so I started watching the show, and there was no blood and guts. There was no like pressure. It just resonated with me. I don't like horses. Stink. When I get on a horse, it makes me freak out because, I feel like I'm going to pass out on the horse. I've only been on a horse twice. I don't like them. I don't want them. But yet I watch the show, which is all about horses. Jimbo, I've seen this show. It's 18 seasons. Mm-hmm. It's most of the seasons in the beginning, and it's 47 minutes. So it's an hour episode, with commercials. So it's 47 minutes per episode. There are 18 seasons. There are, I think, 325 episodes. I've watched it since 2018, 16, 17 times.
I've heard it's a great show. I've never seen it, but my daughter, who's into equestrian,
it's really not a great show. You have to power through to and it's an interest. You could get through it, but unless you have something tied to it. And so I went and visited the set.
Oh wow!
I met some of the actors. They had so that's a picture of Amber Marshall, autographed picture of Amber Marshall that my employees bought for me. And then I have a couple of cowboy hats. You see the one up top is. Yep. I got in an auction. They had an auction of some of the original season 1 memorabilia. I spent and a number of that I will not disclose amount of money to get that hat and the other hat that's right behind me here. Yeah. And then this photo right there in the corner was from season 10, season 11 or something like that. And so I was bidding against old ladies, on this stuff. So that's where the horses come in. But that's a story of I'm obsessed with it. I've almost flown to some of the things where they've had viewings and showings and stuff. I just couldn't make the timing work. But someday I'm going to buy a freaking ranch next to Amber Marshall. My wife gets real jealous because I just like the show. And so I'm obsessed with that show. So that's where the horses comes in.
Got it. I was my daughter does horseback riding, and she just does it for fun because she loves horses, and got into a show called Spirit, which is also about horseback, But man, if there was an industry that you could just get obsessed with, it would be equestrian. And
who knows? Yeah. Maybe someday I do. And there's only so much room for passion. You know, you only have so much, especially the way that I do it. There's only so much room for it. But man, I really enjoy that chipping away, that process of chipping away at becoming an expert in something. The proverbial reading 10 books in a subject, you know, that if you've read 10 books, you've basically got an advanced degree in it. And so, although I don't really read books, I read products. You know, I read how things fit together, and I see it differently, I think, than most. And I used to think that seeing it differently was superior. It's really not. It's just a thing. And then figuring out how to take that thing and make it a contribution to the world, rather than, having the baggage of being an imposter in it, accepting it, believing it, and then sharing what I've learned in the process is what has been the epiphany of what Obsessed Garage or the Obsessed brands has become for me. And then enjoying the process. Like, I'm going to the Consumer Electronics Show for the first time in January. This will be very different than my first time going to SEMA. You know, there was a need to build Obsessed Garage that I don't have as much anymore. I need this. I need to do that. I need to do this. Everybody knows it. I need it. Need it. What if? Need. What if? And so this spiral, this crazy, chaos. And so what I'm hoping is that in figuring myself out, I'm down about 30 pounds, figuring out how to eat properly and figuring out what works for me, getting chemically balanced, that I'll be able to drive my cars wherever I want, whenever I want, and live in the present rather than that death spiral of fear and angst. And who knows, I may be able to go to the doctor and get a checkup someday. Maybe I can beat this curse. But I honestly believe that there's quite a bit of divine intervention here, that I'm not supposed to be able to go rip around and drive around, because I'd lose focus. I wasn't supposed to be able to sort of enjoy the journey and stay in the present, because I probably wouldn't have had that need. I wouldn't have had the what ifs. I wouldn't have had the angst to get to where I've gotten to. And so I don't resent to sort of kind of put this all together when you ask, what does 2014 Matt think of 2024 Matt? It's the I wouldn't give up any of the process. I wouldn't have given up getting fired from wealth management and sued and all of that stuff. It was all part of the deal. In fact, I wouldn't have given up my career as a financial advisor, because I wouldn't have known as much about business and money and finance as I know.
And being able to talk to those people, right, that had money and
learn from them. Like, in the corner there is my my engineering degree, and then my CFP. Even though I'm no longer technically a CFP, because I was ostracized. I was fired, and my license was taken. I was fired for making YouTube videos, which is crazy. I could get a license back, but on my my U5, with the Securities Exchange, you can't maintain your CFP. But I kept that on the wall. I had I think 12 or 13 other diplomas I just threw away, but that's the one I kept to remind me of that part of my life is important. That part of my life was difficult, but the difficulty is what hopefully will allow me to become a great mentor someday. Maybe write a darn book or something like that.
I think you already are. I think putting out the content is a way of being mentoring people.
Yeah, I'm sharing my testimony, and I'm providing I think an example. It's my way of providing an example to the world, to young men, and then sharing the wins and losses. I think is important, because you don't always get to win.
Totally. Yeah, I was talking to someone else a couple days ago, and I'm like, it's almost like success is just a big clump of failures. I thought of, like, remember in 2008 when they were clumping bad loans together and then selling them as good loans? Success is almost like that, right? Hopefully it doesn't turn out as bad, but it's like that. Like, it's just a big clump of failures that have somehow become a good thing,
It's the pursuit of wisdom. It's the pursuit of knowledge. You put it all together to come up with a body of knowledge. I've had a lot of people ask me to be their mentor, and I said, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. I think a good mentor is in their in their 60s, maybe 70s. As long as you're sharp and you're still present and you're still pursuing knowledge and information. All the best mentors I've had have been in their 60s and 70s in my life, and I never asked for one. They just kind of entered into my life, and so I think I'm in the process now of figuring out. I'm going to actually probably start a podcast inside the Hex. It's called, what did I wrote it down? What did I say?
Which pen did you write it down with?
I don't remember. One of these, the art of figuring it out, mentorship, the art of figuring out how to be a mentor, something along those lines of, and it'll probably be a mentorship podcast that's business focused, but figuring out how to grow into who you are and who you've become. And when you believe it, then the arrogance falls away, because arrogance is a mask for insecurity.
100%.
And I know how I'm perceived, and by people that don't get it. I understand that, and in fact I enjoy it to some extent. Some people, because they never belonged anyway. They're never gonna
Right.
they're never gonna spend 30 hours organizing their their sock drawer like I will. They just can't get it. They can't relate to it. So we're not destined for each other anyway. But the art of figuring it out and then sharing that process, I think, is an important part of becoming wise. And because I'm so I cannot explain to you how cursed I feel. Just so afflicted with this. There's such suffering that comes with this obsession, that I think it's the main component in feeling, in acquiring wisdom. Otherwise, I'd feel like I already got it all figured out. I'm pursuing to figure out the solve of this. What is wrong with me? I want this to go away, but I don't want to completely eradicate it, because then I wouldn't figure out my desk or my drawer or the pens. I wouldn't be able to figure it out. I'm deathly afraid of, I probably would do well with having some sort of psychedelic experience, but I'm so deathly afraid that it would break me.
It would take away the
movie Office Space, where he's sitting and he gets hypnotized and
yes. Huh.
Plus, I'm deathly afraid of any kind of medical, so.
Well, isn't that just like drinking a tea though? Like if you're gonna have I've never done it or even looked into it, but from what I've heard, seems like you drink a tea. And
it depends on what you're talking about. I haven't looked into it. I listen to Rogan. I'm sure you do too. And I listen to all those guys, and I'm like, man, maybe that it makes me think, man, that maybe there's something out there that if I take some DMT trip that I could drive my GT3, man.
Yeah. That's tough, because I worry, what if it does something really bad? What if it made it worse?
You become schizophrenic or something like that. Yeah.
That's scary. Well, I have no idea how long we even went. I was just really enjoying it, and I think I'll probably end the recording here, but do you want to tell people how they can find you and,
Yeah, I mean, obsessedgarage.com. That podcast I'm talking about, well, I'm going to probably put it inside the Hex. If you go to obsessedgarage.com and you go to the, for the obsessed, I have a membership where you sign up. And what I do is I vlog usually once or twice a week. I vlog life. And so going to the gym, buying fancy steaks, talking about life and business, all the things that are going on behind the scenes. So it's sort of like a behind the scenes day in the life vlog that I do, all the time. And then I'll also sit down and talk to the camera when I have some idea or something I'm working on. And so if you'd like to check that out, the podcast, the mentorship podcast I'm going to do with my friend Rusty, he's just really good at getting out of me. Like you're good at getting out. I don't talk like this as often.
I really enjoyed it. You were great at it. You really should. I'm still recording, so don't say anything you don't want to say, but I thought you did a great job.
Yeah, I think so I'm going to be doing that, and so it's behind the paywall, and then maybe someday we'll put it on YouTube as well, specifically. But I'm not one for ideas, but this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. how do I become a mentor? Do I want to become one? I don't feel like I'm ready to be one, but I feel like I'm becoming one. From that, what we talked about, that culmination, or that summation of mistakes. I haven't made a lot of mistakes, but I've learned a lot of ways that I could do things better. So
Which is ideal. Mistakes hurt.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to. I mean, I made the mistake of vlogging in wealth management. That was a huge mistake, you know. So I had an amazing career and built this amazing business that was worth a lot of money that got taken from me. It would have been much better had I been able to sell that business.
They didn't even allow you to sell it, your book of business or anything?
No, they took it from me. So, yeah, that was brutal. I mean, that was worth, I don't know, at least a couple $1 million.
Right.
right. So, not only did I not get that, I had to pay them.
Awesome. All for making YouTube videos.
Yeah, so I lost all my income. So imagine you're making hundreds and hundreds of that. Just, you could pick a number, some number between 0 and $1 million on the high side of that, and they took it away. I'm like, holy moly, what am I gonna do? You know, and so, and then not only that, but I don't want to tell the whole story, but I've told this before, but I owed a bunch of tax because of the way that I had moved from one company to another, and they give you like a forgivable loan, and then it's over 8 years, and so then I owed like $600,000 or $700,000 in tax, and then
the loan comes due when you, or it came,
and
due.
then I had to pay them $400,000, right? And so I lost my income, didn't get to sell my business, had to pay them $500,000, and I owed IRS $600,000 or $700,000. But Obsessed Garage was by the skin of my teeth. Every September 15th on the extension, I was able to pay it. I was able to pay it. So despite the fact that everybody thinks, I was, for the first until 2021, all I was doing was working to pay my tax. Because then I sold in 2019, I sold $10 million worth of stuff, and I couldn't pay any tax because I just paid the tax for the previous year. And so then all of my profit was going to pay the $1 million I owe for the tax on the $10 million in sales. And so then finally, I started to make some headway. And then this past year, I'm operating this 20-something $1 million business out of like 3,000 square feet. So I had to buy a building. And so then all the profit that I would have gotten had go to put the down payment on the building. It's like, this is the pursuit of business. Now I'm freaking rich as crap because I got all this stuff.
Right.
But I don't have any money. I don't have any more money now than I did when I started Obsessed Garage in the bank, right? But yet I have, a bunch of inventory, a bunch of real estate, a bunch of assets. So I've acquired a lot of stuff. But this is the thing that I need to share with people in the real world, how it works. And then someday, you take a withdrawal from the business, or I don't have any intention of selling the business, but that's a topic of conversation I think could provide some real value. That
100%.
It's weird for me because people see me getting all this cool stuff, but all that cool stuff is my business, right?
Right.
Speakers, the cars, the detailing stuff is the business. So I get to get all the things I would have wanted anyway. And as you build the business, you can become really wealthy over time, but it's not as quite a clear of a path as most people think it is. And so sharing things like that, a 70-year-old mentor knows how to, he's done that. He's told that
knows
story.
how to navigate it.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you just
got, okay.
Unless you won the lottery, but there's some mistakes along the way where you get fired and you have a what was that, a $3 million, $4 million swing to the negative, right? From, well, I'll just sell my business to and kind of wind it down to they take it. And then not only do they take it, but I owe a bunch of money, right? I owe $1 million instead of getting $1 million, And I'm from the trailer park, man. These numbers are wild to me.
Yeah. Those are big numbers,
So anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but the business side of things and mentorship is something that I'm really interested in sharing and pursuing that and becoming that. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of that, on obsessedgarage.com and through the Inside the Hex thing.
I love it, man. This was great. I'm going to pause the recording here and end it, but thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, dude, it's cool. I appreciate it.